Hi everyone, welcome back to Mr. Tilley's Math Magics. In this lesson we are going to be covering the languages of probability. Now, I'm sure you've probably had a moment in your life already where you've actually had to talk about probability and have a think about the ways you actually speak about it, the words you use when you're defining probability of an event. So from here, I want you to just quickly pause the video and write down as many different ways that you can think of to speak probability in the language of probability that you know. Okay, so how many did you get written down? In this video, we're going to go through a couple of different ways of speaking probability, and I'd recommend you actually write these down as we go. That way you can keep track and at least have something to refer back to. So this first one we're going to look at is actually just using our simple words. You will have definitely come across these in your earlier years when you're looking at probability, and it's things like certain. Well, what are the chances that the sun is going to rise tomorrow? Well, we're all certain the sun is going to rise tomorrow. We're not talking about ifs, ands, buts, maybes, throwing out random situations. We are talking about the situation that we are currently in. We are certain that the sun is going to rise tomorrow. For the word likely, we're looking at a situation like you consistently arrive to class with all of your equipment and you pay attention in class. It's quite likely that the teacher's going to think that you are putting in a lot of effort. So that's likely. When it comes to even, we're thinking more of a coin toss. Heads and tails, even chance. There's two, they're both equally as likely to occur. Unlikely, well, what are the chances that I'm going to win the lotto tomorrow with the lotto ticket that I buy? It's not impossible, there is a really small chance there, but it's unlikely. And impossible, well, it is impossible for human beings to evolve to a point where we can fly on our own unassisted tomorrow. It is impossible. Remember, we are talking about the situation that we are in right now. So these are some just worded examples in the context of when you would use them. Our next language for probability, especially in math, this is really going to help us out here, using a decimal. So when we talk about decimals, we start with absolutely certain, yes, definitely going to happen. That is represented by a 1. It's always going to happen. From there, an even chance is 0.5. So we've got yes, it's going to happen, or no, it's not. It's a 0.5 chance. Impossible? Nah, 0. Every single time. Doesn't matter how many times you do it, you got a 0 chance of actually that event happening. Now, I've put the arrows there between 0.5 and 1 to really show you that any value from even to 1, it's likely to happen. It's more likely to happen than not. So that's why that's there. And vice versa with unlikely. Anything that's less than half, it's unlikely going to happen. Not impossible, it's not 0, but it's just unlikely. Our next one that we have here is our percentage. And you're going to start to see a bit of a pattern here with the next ones. So 100%, yes, definitely going to happen. Every single time you try, it will definitely happen. So rolling a dice, what are the chances that you'll actually get a value? Doesn't matter what value, what are the chances that you'll get a value? 100%. Even is 50%. You could, or you may get it, you may not. You may get it, you may not. Heads and tails again. There's an even chance that both sides could get flipped, and 0%, doesn't matter how many times you try, you're definitely not gonna get it. You'll see those arrows there again for likely and unlikely. So our next language for probability is actually as a fraction. So at the top, 1. And I've got 1 there because 1 as a fraction is simply 1 over 1. This just simplifies down to be 1. Again, even, it's a half chance. We have 2 possible outcomes, and one of them is going to happen. One of them won't, but one of them will, so it's a half. Impossible? Nah, definitely 0, not happening. I want to draw your attention, though, to the likely and unlikely fractions that I've got there. Now, for likely, what you'll notice is that our numerators at the top are actually more than half of our denominators. And that's really important because half is an even chance, but likely means that it's more than even. So it's got to be somewhere, again, between half and 1. And then vice versa. On the bottom, you've got, for unlikely events, you've got your numerator that's less than half of our denominator. We've got 1/4, 1/5, 2/5, and 3/8. Somewhere on the way to 0, but not quite all the way at 0. Now, finally, our last method for probability, our last language for probability is as a ratio. You're going to see this pattern here when you get to the top and you've got an absolutely certain event. It's 1, it's 100, it's 1 over 1, it's 1 is to 1. This means that for every possible outcome you have there, you've got just as many that are going to happen. So if I've got 10 is to 10, 50 is to 50, they have to be the same. It means that for every one attempt, you're definitely getting your desired outcome. Again, you've got 0.5, 50%, half, 1 is to 2. So here you've got 2 possible outcomes, and one of those possible outcomes is your desired event. So this also looks similar to a half. Now, as with the fractions, as you can see with the ratios, our first number in our ratio just happens to be more than half of our second, and this means that it's a likely event to occur. Just the same as with the unlikely event, these numbers here, the first one is less than half of the second, and it kind of means that it's on its way to 0, but not quite there. From here, if you've got questions, please write them down, bring them into class. I'll bet your teacher up the front there has a lot of great activities planned for you to really cement this knowledge in your mind. Okay, I'll catch you later.